All this week, we've been looking at the dangers of cyber attacks on the U.S. government, businesses, and consumers. As we wrap up our look at cybersecurity, we turn to a company that's one of the leaders in internet security. It's Check Point Software. Joining us now, Fred Coast. He's the head of product marketing at Check Point. Fred, let's start off by just you telling us, you talk to a lot of companies. What is the key security issue that concerns businesses the most?
Sure, Susie. I think there's two things going on. One, we're finding that how company employees do their work, get their job done, has really changed. They're using the internet in different ways, they're using social media, and they're using a lot of new applications. And so businesses are very concerned that just how employees are working might put them at risk of some sort of attack. But the other thing they're concerned about, if you look at attackers and what they're doing, they've become very clever, they've become very targeted in their attacks, and so they face, a very challenging sort of threat environment. So it's both of those things that really, I think, have most companies very concerned about security and how they secure their business today.
Now, when you look at the landscape of threats that are out there, what companies or industries or what sections of the country are most vulnerable?
Well, I think what you find is, I would say almost any company is vulnerable. Obviously, we see things like financial services or companies that operate critical infrastructure might be slightly more sensitive or more likely to come under attack. But if you look at today and the way companies are running their business, any company that has intellectual property in the form of customer names, financial records, trade secrets, or any company that runs any sort of critical infrastructure, it could become very vulnerable to attack. So it's not so much that there's a particular sector or vertical industry that's vulnerable, it's really almost any business can be vulnerable. And if you look at the trend we're seeing with what's known as hacktivism, where someone takes a position against a company and launches an attack just because of the political position or the kind of product or service that company offers, that opens up the window more. So we really see more and more every business is vulnerable to some kind of attack.
Right. And a variety of different kinds of attacks. So Check Point comes to the rescue. I mean, what can a company expect you to do, without getting to the details of your products necessarily, but what can a company expect to be protected against these kind of attacks?
Sure. So the kind of things we do are really deal with some of the problems we talked about. Companies are concerned about how their users are using applications, how they're using the network. So we have ways to protect those employees and the applications they're using so they remain safe and don't put the business to risk. Other concerns are this notion of bring your own device. More and more we're seeing users want to bring devices into the work environment. Companies are very concerned, so we help solve that problem so that companies can feel comfortable and safe that if an employee brings a device in the environment, they're protected. And as companies wrestle with these threats, it's very much now the attackers are going after the user. They no longer try to break into the network and do it sort of break down the front door. They're much more likely to try to get Susie to read an email, view a website, and that's the first step they pursue to get into the network. So we're very focused on staying up to the latest threats and making sure that we understand those threats and protect those business with a portfolio of different products.
You said a moment ago that these attackers have become very clever, so they come up with ways to get around, new ways to get around the very safeguards that you put in. Can you, in just a few seconds that we have left, what can companies do to stay ahead and be prepared for whatever the next wave is?
Yeah, I think there's unfortunately no one silver bullet. I think companies have to put in place products that are going to sort of attach to these problems we've talked about. Products that know about the latest threats, can protect their employees and their business from that. I think that's the key thing they can do. Again, there's no one silver bullet.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm sorry to cut you off like that, but really interesting information. Fred Coast of Check Point Software.